Welcome back to the Fulfilled Female Entrepreneur Podcast. It's your host, Cassandra Rosa. I'm a certified coach and healer and intuitive business coach. And the mission behind this podcast is to help you to create a fulfilling life and business. Today, I'm excited to have Kailee on the podcast. She's going to be talking about how to showcase your eclectic personality on your website. Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. I'm really excited for today's episode. We have Kailee here. We're going to be talking about incorporating your eclectic personality into your website. And we connected on Facebook, I believe, and I was a guest on her podcast. It's actually going to be coming out on Halloween. So in just a few days here, we're going to leave a link to her podcast so you're able to go check it out and hear our conversation. And I'm excited about our interview today. So first and foremost, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I'm so excited to allow the tables to be turned and learn more about you and your magic that you have.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Hi, everyone. If you're listening, whether you're on the go or at home, I'm excited you're here. My name is Kailee, and I am the owner of eclecticdesigns.co, which matches up quite a bit with the name of this podcast episode. And I am originally from Denver, Colorado, but just moved to Orlando, Florida this year. But I work primarily with holistic and spiritual providers to work on their brand development and website design so that they can really shine in their industry and start to attract their dream clients. So they're also making the income to live their dream life.
I love that. I love that. And your personality definitely shines through so brightly and so powerfully, even being a guest on your podcast. So I'm so excited for you to be able to share some of your tips and words of wisdom today with the audience. And this podcast is called Fulfilled Female Entrepreneur. And I love to ask the guests, what does fulfillment mean to you?
This is such a good question. And it's one that, I just turned 28. So I feel very young, but I'm also a very old soul. So I think fulfillment is something that I'm still kind of in the process of learning for myself and what it means. I think it's this idea of like being able to not live in kind of this constant fear, though, right? Fulfillment is when you can end your day and you have this sense of peace, and you also can wake up the next day feeling pretty good about what you're about to embark on. And I've had so many conversations about what fulfillment is, and coming into being an entrepreneur, as all of us know, is it's challenging. I think it's highlighted as such this glamorous, beautiful thing, but at the end of the day, we all still have lives outside of entrepreneurship, and finding balance, I think, is the biggest one when I think of fulfillment, because without balance and being able to kind of ground yourself, I think, it's easy to get lost in the chaos. So for me right now, fulfillment means balance in my life.
I love that. And I love how you touched on having fulfillment in your business, but as well in the personal, and that it is a journey to understand it. And there are different seasons in life, and that allows us to have more clarity of what fulfillment means to us. And with all that you do, helping those holistic and spiritual entrepreneurs with their businesses, with their branding, with their websites, what's the most fulfilling part for you?
I think it's so beautiful, just one, to be in this industry. I had a huge experience within my own life. I was freshly in my first semester of college, and I got really, really sick. And I couldn't return to college. Long story short, I was like hospitalized. I had to take a year essentially off of life. And it brought me back to, I've always been holistic and spiritual, right? I think we always are when we're young kids, and we can probably recall so many times within our lifetime so far that, oh yeah, that was definitely like my intuition or my spirituality that was really kicking in. And I really came into that big time back when I was 18, 19 and got sick. And if it weren't for the practitioners that I worked with and the people within the holistic and spiritual community, I would probably not be where I am today, because they helped guide and bring me into such a place of healing, and to know that like I've been directly affected and gained so much support from this industry and community, and to give back to that and know that I'm helping you elevate your brand, helping you elevate and shine really bright on your website and make sales so that you can continue to do this. You're creating like ripple effects. And that's what feels so good to me, knowing that, I'm doing something I love, right? I love the branding and the design and the creativity behind it. But then in return, I'm helping you create a difference in your community and spreading that out, right? So that's the most fulfilling part for me, is just knowing that like I get to do what I love, but also I'm helping you change people's lives.
I love that. I love how there was a really difficult experience that you shared with us when you were 18, 19, not feeling well, and that this community is what supported you. And now it's like almost like a give back exchange by you doing what you do. So I absolutely love how you took that difficult time and you transformed it so deeply into your purpose and your business. And I know that you love to incorporate the whole concept of eclecticness into your branding. And I know when we were talking about the topic for today, you're talking about it's really important to incorporate your personality on your website, which I love because over the years, looking at all the websites, some coaches that I invested in, some that I didn't invest in, it's interesting, especially with the templates when it comes to websites, how it can kind of be very cookie cutter in the approach. So when it comes to incorporating your personality on your website, why do you think that that's important, not only for the website and for the sales, but from a branding perspective?
Right. So the word eclectic, right, is often used in interior design, but it really came through for me because I was asking kids in college, like, how would you explain who I am as a person? And they'd seen me, almost every day, because I was in very small classes every day for 3.5 years. And they kept saying eclectic, and I wasn't really sure what that word meant. And it just means like collecting inspiration from numerous aspects and bringing it into one. And to me, that resonates so much because we all, on some level, are eclectic. We have different, I think about how I represent myself in my business, but like that's not fully who I am, right? Like there's still a part of me that like really loves sports, and like there's other parts of me that are a bit more athletic. So there's so much that makes us who we are. And I think when we're building our business, it's really hard to kind of hone in and come and choose, like, okay, how am I representing myself as a business? And how can I bring who I am into my branding? It's beautiful that we have access to so many people at the touch of our fingertips with social media. But at the same time, it's easy to get lost and constantly question, how am I supposed to show up? Who am I supposed to be in my business? And I specialize in really teaching my clients to channel and really bring through who they are, especially on their website. Like if you go over to my website, it is galaxy, it is blues and purples. And right now you could tell with this lighting, that's just who I am. Like I wear this on a regular basis. My hair has been purple for probably the past like 3 or 4 years. And these are aspects of myself that I've just really fallen in love with. And to be able to just show up and be who I am in business has completely transformed the way my business has developed, especially with my website. I have so many clients that come onto my website and they apply to work with me. And one of the questions is like, well, why me? Why did you choose to be interested in working with me in the first place? And so many of them would say, I love your branding. And it's so beautiful when they say that, because it's like, oh, it's me. Like my branding is who I am. And to be able to bring who you are into the spotlight and represent that onto your website, and, you know, maybe your branding doesn't look like mine, right? There's so many of my clients who are attracted to more of the like soft tones and the creams and the really minimalistic style. But then there's others of us who do have that brighter sense. So just coming in and really honing in on like who you can embody and feel really confident and good and want to attract the people that are going to love who you are as a person and enjoy working with you. That's what I want and encourage you to bring to life in your branding and your website. And it can feel a little uncomfortable at first, right? When I first started out, I for sure was going more towards that minimalistic, modern, cream colored based branding. And as I've grown into who I am within my early 20s to my late 20s, is I'm this very vibrant type of person, and that's who I want to represent and be. And I promise you, when you can do that and bring that in, oh, it just feels so aligned.
Yes, I love that. And I remember when I was looking on your website when we first met, it's very bold and it's very beautiful and it's the blues and the purples and having these live calls with you and seeing it, there's a uniform brandedness, which I think is really beautiful. And I know for a lot of people, even when I was starting my whole journey with branding, it can be like, where do you start? Like in some businesses, they kind of talk about and branding specifically, they talk about, colors, but I'm sure that you would say this, that branding and when it comes to a website, it's more than that, right? More than the color tones that you're going to do, it's the vibrancy and it's the clarity, within that radiates out since we are energetic beings. And for most of us that are here are quite spiritual. So we read the vibe too. So when it comes to the starting position, when people are just starting their website, just starting to understand their branding and their approach, how would you start to uncover what that brand, what that representation of self and representation of our personality could be that, they could transcribe onto their website?
I'm so happy you brought that up. I think, like you said, often we go through that checklist of like, okay, I need a logo, I need colors. Like branding is so embedded in our society, all the way from big business to small business and on social media. All these people have brands, right? And so it can feel really confusing, like, well, where did they get started? So I always suggest, like, don't worry so much about your colors and your fonts and what your logo looks like. And instead, really think about what you feel comfortable with. And the reason starting there is so important is because rather you are just starting out, like you just signed up, just put out there that you're starting your business, or you're a year or two in already, your branding is going to change. And that's okay because you're changing and your business is changing. And that's normal. And, for an effective brand, and you'll see if you follow me over on Instagram, I do talk about consistency. I'm like, consistency is key. But evolving is key too, because that's what all of us do. If you look, my favorite example is always Starbucks. One, I'm a huge coffee lover. And two, their branding has evolved and developed over time. And they've solidified their branding so well, and they've stuck with it for quite a few years now to where they're at now. But if you go and you look up just the history of the Starbucks branding, it has completely changed and evolved over time. And that's what all of us are supposed to be doing too. So come back to like what you feel comfortable with and don't let like the small details hold you back. I'm a perfectionist. And so many times I have let my perfectionism completely stop me in my tracks from like growing and developing my business. So don't be afraid, like if you do need a template and you're starting out, like don't be afraid to like, it's okay to start with that cookie cutter. And even though it's like, oh my gosh, it looks like everybody else's, that's okay. It'll develop over time, or you can find a designer to help you elevate it once you feel like you're in the spot where you're like, okay, I feel good. I'm pretty sure I'm ready to invest in someone to help me with my branding, to elevate my visuals and bring who I am to life into my business. So that's like the biggest advice again is coming back to what you're comfortable with. Who are you able to embody when you step into your business? Again, I think this comes back to um, you know, e- everybody's going to get little parts of us and they're not always going to get the full us, right? How I'm going to talk to everybody here on the podcast is not how I talk to my significant other. So it's kind of remembering that it's okay to kind of channel a different part of you when you're coming into your business, that helps you feel more comfortable and confident. Like coming into this version of myself, I feel so confident and excited to be part of this whole thing that is my business.
I love that. I love how you're talking about like the evolution, right? Because we are beings that are constantly evolving, especially people that focus on personal development and spiritual development. And I think sometimes I had that same experience as you of getting caught up with like the perfectionism of this is has to be perfect
Mhm,
forever, right? And I think it's also like understanding, the power of now and what is true to you and what you feel comfortable with now and giving yourself permission to be able to change and evolve with all of that. And I think it's also great too how you mentioned it's okay to use the template to start and it's okay to
mhm,
finesse it as you go along the journey because as you update your offers, as you update yourself and your qualifications, you are going to be going back to the website and making adjustments. I know that I've had so many iterations of mine because of how much I evolve myself. So I think that that's a great point to touch on. And then when it comes to personality, when it comes to the finessing, so say they have their template, they have that website there, or someone already has a website from a year or two, like you mentioned, and they're looking to finesse and incorporate their eclectic personality into their website. What are some practical tips that you can give the listeners that are like baby steps that they can incorporate to take that paintbrush and fine tune what they already have?
mhm. So there's 2 things that come to mind. One of them is your voice. So the biggest thing that we are pulled into is how someone is talking to us, right? This goes for any interaction that we have throughout the day, and especially as those of us who are more in tune with like just energy. You go to a grocery store and you could immediately tell if someone's open to having a conversation versus someone who's not, and the words you use and the conversation starters, and that's part of your branding. That's your brand voice, that's the strategy. And so I want you to think about like, how do you want to talk to those that you want to work with? What and I think we get stuck too in like, okay, I'm a little bit confused about how to, so let me backpedal a little bit. um I started talking to like a past version of myself. And that is so helpful. Think about, where was I at a couple years ago and what type of advice would I give myself that brought me to where I am now? Or stepping into that, conversation starter, or even there's some people who do really well with like using curse words in their branding. And that's just the type of people they want to attract. And so there's that different type of tone that you want to bring in. And that's going to really set you apart because people still do read. And so that's a really strong one to start with, is just make sure that like your voice is really coming through. How do you want to talk to people? How do you want to be perceived when they're reading your website and, learning more about you? Because that's what's going to really draw them in to be like, oh my gosh, they are talking to me. I need to work with them because they understand what I'm going through and I want to be where they are now, right? So oftentimes we're solving like past us problems for our dream clients. So that's the first thing I would start with. The second thing is visuals, and I want you to really play around with this. And there are some brand designers, and this is something I had to unteach myself because in school it was like a huge no-no. Like you don't use your favorite color. It doesn't matter. Like it needs to be very specific to your industry. And so I felt very stuck when I first started doing my branding because my favorite color is purple. Like I said, my hair's been purple for years. Most of like things I buy are purple. Like looking at my desk right now, I have a lock that's purple. I have amethyst all over my desk. My keyboard is purple. And just it's okay to use a color that you love. And I've noticed for you, Cassandra, you use pink, and that's awesome. Like, if that's your favorite color, lean into that. It takes me back to being a young girl, and my room was pink and purple. And like, I miss that, to be honest. Right now, we don't like live in a house, we live in an apartment, but I can't wait to have a house to be able to paint a room purple. Like, it is one of my dreams to
I
be
love
able to
it.
have a purple wall, and have a purple theme to a room. But I want you to be able to have fun with your branding, especially on your website. So bringing in those colors are going to be a huge indicator too. And I think it's okay to also reach out and ask designers for advice. Like, my DMs are always open. If you're like, hey, I'm just getting started, this is what I've DIY'd. What do you think? And then I can come on and look and be like, I love that you used green. Green's your favorite color, but maybe let's dial it back to be a little bit less bright, or maybe let's bump up the saturation. So just a little bit of like designer advice is always good too. And it's a great place to start. So I'm always very open to if you need help on your website, or you just need somebody else to look over your visuals. Cause we're looking at our business and our brand 24/7. I have a VA who double checks all my stuff. And sometimes she's like, oh, that's a little bit too much purple here. Let's mix in some other colors to it. So those are probably the first two that I would say can really help bring in like a little bit of finesse to your website compared to just sticking with the cookie cutter template that's already there.
I love that. I love that. Giving yourself permission to be bold, to use that favorite color. I know even too, when I learned about branding was like finding something in like nature or an object that you have and just see all the colors that are there together. So you have your accents. So for me, it was like a pretty, like a fuchsia rose, right? With the green, with like, like navy instead of black or white to kind of break it up. So that was something else that happened that really gave me that aha when it came to branding. And I like how you're saying like the brand voice, like how you're going to talk to your person and your ideal client may be different from someone else. Some people can be really formal, some can be more casual. So I think it's too like looking about how you talk and how you want to talk to them and writing it that way instead of feeling like you have to be cookie cutter in the approach. So I love all the tips that you've shared. And I know that you have a free gift for the listeners. Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah. So if you are just starting out, and honestly, even if you're a couple years in, I have a free resource, and it's a brand audit checklist. And this is something I encourage all my clients and my followers to download and use and resource. Not just if you're first starting out, but maybe a couple years in too, because it takes you back to see what are the things that I need. I'm a very list oriented type of person. So it just gives you that idea of like, what's going to help me stand out? How can I attract more dream clients? We'll take this brand audit checklist, and you can kind of go through it and see what are the needs that you have, or maybe you have a lot of them already. So it's a great resource to use just to understand like what's a good starting out point. What are some things that I need to start working on as I continue to go? And don't feel like, you have to get this checklist done in a day. It's something that just you can take time with, because slow growth is still growth at the same time.
I love that. I too am very much a list person. So I
Yeah.
love that you touch on that and that it's a simple thing that you can incorporate over time to be able to audit what you have and see this minor adjustments that you can make to help you stand out and attract more clients in the long run. So do you want to talk a little bit about what specifically you do when it comes to branding and website design for your clients? Just to see if someone's listening and they're like, yes, I'm loving Kailee. I want to work with her. And then let us know where that they can connect with you if they want to learn more about the ways of collaborating with you.
Yeah. So for social media, Instagram's always a great place just so you can dive deeper into understanding like how I guide my clients through things, get to know me a bit more. Like I said, getting sick, my story is on there too. And so Instagram, eclecticdesigns.co. And also my website is eclecticdesigns.co. You can fill out an application there. And I don't do just like brand and website only. It's also like brand development. So where I'm talking about, that strategy of your brand voice, those are things we go into as well. I have an application on my website, but it's completely like stress free. Like you fill it out and we get on a call just like this. And I talk about how I can help you. And just know that I'm very transparent. If I think, now's not a good time for you to invest, I'll let you know and give you some guiding points and some tips and tricks that you can take on your own. And then for website design, I specialize in Wix. So Wix is a website building platform similar to like Squarespace, WordPress, but Wix I have found has been super beneficial for all my clients who want to scale their business. It has a really great back end where you can manage your business and income, which I love. So those are kind of the two areas that I specialize in. And I always design and come from ensuring that we're coming from a very aligned place for you. So whatever your business goals are, I'm listening and ensuring that, I'm providing you with the type of things you need in your branding to get you there.
I love that. I have Wix.
Oh my
So
gosh,
I
it's
love
so
the
good. I
alignment
love
there for
it.
sure. It's such a great platform. Awesome. So we're going to leave links to the branding checklist and Instagram and your website in the show notes or in this video. So it's easy for them to connect. Thank you so much for coming on. I know I learned a lot from this conversation and I know the audience will too.
Well, thank you so much for your time. And thank you for those of you that are listening. And don't forget, we have an episode over on my podcast, Branded and Booked, that's coming out on Tuesday, Halloween, with Cassandra on it as a guest as well. And that episode is just really, really insightful there.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you'll be notified every time I'll upload a new video on Thursday. See you in the next one. Bye.